Well, hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kizma. I'm Nick, and today's topic, we're continuing on with the Attitude Adjustment series. We are talking about your attitude towards other people.
Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kizma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set. Well, hello, Kizma.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am great. I'm so excited for this topic.
Yeah, this is a good topic for you. You like this one?
The attitude towards other people, aka the boomerang.
The boomerang.
Boomerang.
It really is a boomerang, isn't it?
Look, everyone, the show is really short today. It's just what you give out, you get back. Okay, we're going to go have a beer. See you later.
That's it. We're done.
We're done.
All right. Cue the outro. Yeah, this is, when we talk about relationships, it's a really rich topic. It's something that comes up a lot on the podcast. And attitude, the attitude adjustment version of this is really has everything to do with how you hold yourself in relationships, your attitude towards other people. You know,
and I think in relationships, but even people you don't know.
Well, yeah, of course. It's when I speak of relationship, I don't mean necessarily like people that you know. It's you're out at relating to a stranger, who you've never met before. Like, how do you meet that human? What's your attitude towards meeting that other human, and to do that in a really productive way, in a way where everybody wins. That's one of the thing I think a lot we get caught into, and I honestly think it has a lot to do with lack mentality, but where it seems like there's these win-lose scenarios. It's like for you to win, somebody else has got to lose. And our attitude is it's got this kind of adversarial or really competitive mindset, but not competitive in a positive way. So it's kind of interesting, that like where that comes up and how we look at the other, and really making them the other.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's really important. I mean, so when we've been talking about attitude. And I know when we sat down to record today, you're like, let's talk about the attitude towards others. What comes to mind first for you?
I'll tell you a little story. We have a clients. Kizma and I coach a couple, and one works with me and one works with her. And what I can tell you is that it's very interesting in those conversations how one views the other, right? And then a lot of the conversation is around really understanding that person, really having an ability to meet them where they're at, and to not look at the problems. Because let's be honest, when you've been with somebody for a number of years, a couple years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, that's a long time. And it's very easy to look at that person as if they're the same as they were 20 years ago. And all of a sudden, you're not relating to the real person; you're relating to that old person. And in an intimate relationship, I think at a certain point, you're going to disappoint that person, or make them angry, or something is going to happen. You don't have a relationship at that level where those things don't come up. That's the beauty of it. Like, that's really the beauty of those relationships. And so when enough of those things build up and you start to see that aspect of the person, well, it locks you into that aspect of that person. So you're relating to this person that they're not even anymore, and all these problems, so you're seeing this side of that person and not the other. Right. The beauty and the amazingness for who they are, and like just that sparkle of a freaking human being, like really relating to another human being like that, it's just a fascinating experience, to watch another human in their life. And so the first thing that comes up for me is like, that's such a big part of the conversation. And when that little piece is adjusted, and sometimes it's not like a big old 180. It's like a 2% adjustment of just
it can be that slight.
a little tack, and it makes such a world of difference in that relationship. And those two in particular, in the way that they relate to one another, and the way that they communicate has changed radically.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's always a beautiful thing for me to see, because I think a lot of people get to a place in their relationship, and it just seems so much easier to just bail. You know, like, I'm done, I'm out, screw it, on to the next. And sure, there's a time and a place for that. But at the end of the day, really putting in that effort to relate to that person in a new way, I think goes a long ways. And you never know what can be there. A lot of people want to go back to the way that they were, right? Oh, I wish we could just get back to the way that we were. And I think that's a bunch of crap. I think that's a non-reality. Like, why would you want to go back there? You're two new human beings. You're beautiful human beings. Like, why not create something new and even cooler and better than what you had before?
Well, that would certainly be the ideal. I think as well, when someone is focused, like you said, on what's the problem, and they're not focused on what all the good stuff is, that problem grows.
Exactly.
We have to understand this, everyone. Like, what we focus on, it expands, it grows, it multiplies, it becomes our truth about whether it's a person, whether it's a situation, whether it's about ourselves. We'll be talking about that in the next episode. But and so when, if you're looking at someone, you're like, even if it's a physical thing, and you're like, oh, my husband has this humongous wart on his cheek. And then you never notice his gorgeous eyes. I mean, I know that's silly, but this is what it is. What we focus on expands, and is just like front and center all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, when you see people for the first time, like let's move from, an intimate relationship or somebody that to a stranger. Like the first time you see somebody, there's certain features about them that that stand out.
Could be captivating.
Yeah,
right. For sure.
Kind of like we talked about in one of the other episodes. It's like, okay, well, you see the vehicle that they're in, you see that physical human form that they're in. And that tells you in and of itself, that tells you something about that person. And just like you just said, like you put it so beautifully, if there's something about that either you don't like or seems off, or whatever reason that you find for judging that person, and you start to see that, well, that's what you're going to see.
Right. Right. And, with the qualities of the personality, if we are looking for someone to act a certain way that we might not agree with or might not like, I totally get that. Like, there's going to be elements of humans that either we hope for change or we want to inspire change. But if we're always entering the conversation and focused on that, more of that is going to show up.
Right, right. And it brings up this this really interesting part around what we call alchemy, right? So it's your level of refinement and how you relate to other people and places and things and objects too, and environments. But let's just keep it to people right now. And the more refined a person's character, like you have a certain level of tolerance around that, so it's really super refined person, that likes everything perfect and in a certain way and very ordered and very clean and really nice. They're not going to relate to somebody so well. Or they can have challenges.
They can have challenges.
A better way to put it is they can have challenges with people who don't really worry about their environment.
Right.
They don't dress a certain way. They might keep their space kind of messy, or maybe they don't shower as often as they should. And things like that. And it's like, well, it's really difficult to get past some of those certain first layer, those layers, and really be around that person for any length of time. And alchemy is something that everybody has. Everybody has a particular level of a refinement. So I think it's kind of interesting of how that plays into it, like what your tolerance is. And that's where to me anyway, the fun is where's that edge,
well, that's because you're a silver gold and I'm a gold silver, and it ain't so fun.
For you.
No.
Yeah.
So when we talk about alchemy, everyone, we've referenced this Ultimate Life Tool. You'll see the link in our show notes if you're interested in taking it. But this is something that is true with each and every one of us. We will, and one is not better than the other, but there will be elements of gold, silver, and copper. And it means that you might be the person that can go camping and get messy in the mud. You might be the person that's very organized and you seem to be friends with everybody. You can tolerate everyone. Or you might be the kind of person that can only tolerate others for a few hours. Not that you don't like them, not that you disrespect them. There just becomes an energy drain.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, it's tolerate certain others.
Certain others.
Yeah. So if
Right.
you've got somebody that's like down in the mud with you, you know,
Yeah, not going to work.
yeah, it's just not going to work. But you can hang out with somebody in a 5-star hotel all day long.
All day long.
Exactly. So this is really interesting, right?
Yeah.
And same with the other person, because
Yeah.
they're just gonna be like, dude, we're hanging out here, you know, like let's go do something.
Yeah,
you know, like, let's go
right.
build a fire or something.
Right.
And you know, that's just a very different thing. And they'll get annoyed at, you know, they can get annoyed at somebody who's really refined. They can get annoyed at their particularness.
Of course.
It's like, dude, like why are you stressing out
Yeah,
about that?
high
You and
maintenance.
I have had some
Right.
conversations about that here and
Yeah.
there. Where I'm more practical in certain things and you just want it the way that you want it. You want it a
the way I
certain
want it,
way,
yeah.
which is fine. Like none of it's wrong.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The importance of this conversation, again, is back to attitudes towards others, attitudes to each of us. It's not about saying someone is worse or they should be a different way. I think it comes down to, okay, what can we do to respect each other and to have that attitude? You know, the ultimate attitude is to look at someone and understand they've got the divine spark.
Exactly.
They are interconnected with you through whatever this thread of the unique ultimate energy. We all have it. And so that is like focusing on the solution, right? The good thing, we're all interconnected.
Right.
And we can choose to see that or to look for it, or we can choose to ignore it and just to focus on what we, you know, quote unquote, don't like about that person.
Right. And it's so easy because those are the things that scream at you. It's like the squeaky wheel, right?
Yeah.
And those things that are loud to you, it's like so easy to just focus on that and it takes your attention away from that. But it's like, man, you look at that person and their form and it's just like, wow, you know, that's a human being. Yeah, it's just so fascinating. Then that divine spark is in every single one of us. And that's the same.
It's a walking miracle.
Yeah, it really is.
You know, and if you're more quiet like I am, I'm pretty introvert. If you choose to not have a lot of conversations with a lot of people and you just observe, you can observe that they're just walking, moving miracles. And then what you're putting out is this miracle energy. So guess what you're going to get back? Miracle energy. And that's where I really want to take this, because there is this really important teaching. We've talked about it. I talk about it in my mindset training. It's called the law of increase. So what we focus on increases. It gets bigger. This is the intention. This is your thought. This is your focus. So the law of increase can mean if you're focused, as we were just talking, on the pieces and parts about a human that you don't like, you're going to see more of that. When you focus on the pieces and the parts and the souls and the divine sparks, you're going to see more of that. And furthermore, when you give out, you know, you mentioned at the beginning, Nick, like the competition. If you're watching someone, if you feel jealous, if you're thinking like, well, why do they have that? And you're giving out that sort of jealousy and resentment and competition, it is going to diminish your success. It's the boomerang.
Yeah.
And when someone, this is a really cool way to look at the attitude for others. If you know someone that's like really trying hard to pull their boots up and just be like, okay, I'm going to get this and I'm pivoting, I'm changing, never judge that person. Never, we call it sort of the negative Nelly attitude, because you demagnetize what they're doing. You really take that away from them. And yes, it's relying on their actions and their choices, but you can demagnetize a person. If you give that to someone else, someone's going to do that to you. The universe is going to do it to you, just like cause and effect, not to punish you, but just like it is a result.
Yeah, I see it more as you doing it to yourself.
That's great. Yes.
When you do that, like your container, and you can measure this. Like this is not hard to measure. Like your spirit, your energetic container will actually, at minimum, it will decrease by half.
Exactly. We do this all the time in Energy Mastery. Yep.
Yeah, and it's as simple as. Because what you're really doing is it's not quite the level of a curse, but it's along the lines of a curse. Like when you want somebody to fail so that you can succeed, you are causing yourself to struggle even that much harder to succeed.
Absolutely. I mean, a curse, actually, I know it sounds like really weird and, scary, but all a curse is when someone is putting consistent negative energy, thought, words, towards another person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the good news is you don't have to take it. You don't have to accept it. But I'm sharing this more about what it's doing to, say, you if you're doing that to someone else. The curse is actually on you.
Yeah, exactly. You're cursing yourself.
Cursing yourself.
And that's the thing I think that when we create that separation, the continual, yes, we are separate and distinct separate and distinct human forms, I think is a better way to put it, but we're all part of the same substance, the same substratum. So at the end of the day, when you do that to somebody else, you are just directly impacting yourself.
Yeah.
Like so clearly.
Right. So there's a kind of a visual I want to give people to help you all understand, because I know you're out in the world, you're going to work, you're going grocery shopping, you're at the bank, you're with friends. Like there's so many people around, and it can be this hustle and bustle of life. And someone might pull in front of you. It's just an endless stream of possibilities of things to annoy us. In India, we see this all the time. People actually, when they're saying hello, they put their hands together and they say namaste. And of course, those of you that do yoga, you hear namaste all the time, and we end up forgetting what namaste is. But in India, it's like namaste, namaste. Or in some of the Asian countries, it's like a bow, right? It is a way to salute a person where you see them as the light, or you see them in terms of, I'm going to give you respect. And I think in this, at least I can speak for the United States, we never really had that. The handshake was one way. I think that was more powerful, meeting someone and shaking their hands. It's like, here's an agreement for me to have an attitude towards you of respect and consideration. There's not a lot of handshaking these days, not like before.
And that's a really interesting point. And the value of a really well-delivered handshake is really profound, because it lets you connect with a person through all those different doors, through the touch, to look them in the eye, to say a kind word, or to smile. Like all those things, it just opens up the doors into somebody's heart so that you can actually have a conversation. And all those doorways need to be open in order for both parties to really be feeling like they're seen and heard and valued and respected. And that's for any conversation. Really, what's the value of a conversation if you're not going to do that with another human being?
Exactly.
Like, what are you really doing? But we go so fast that it's really easy to forget that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's that they don't have respect for one another, or they don't want to, or they want to be doing these things. I think it's more mental laziness and just going way too fast.
Yeah, I agree. Missing the moment.
Yeah, you're on your phone and just not really even acknowledging that person in front of you. That's standing right there, and it's like, oh, well, that connection piece gets lost, and that the value of that human connection is so powerful.
Right. I think that's true. India. Zoe used to talk about this when she lived in Abu Dhabi. They would greet each other in Arabic and use a lot, like the word God was mentioned, and there was always like, how's your family? There was just an exchange that made a connection or an attitude of respect, understanding that, what's in me is in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really that's part of the attitude adjustment. It's not hard to find things that are different or separate.
Right.
But it's also not hard to look for what's the same. In fact, it's about 100 times easier because we really have so much more in common. But a lot of those things just happen to lie below the surface.
Sometimes, and I do believe it's the intention behind what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And to understand this, if any of you have been consistently putting out an attitude towards others that is less than ideal, you're probably shaking off some dust right now. Like there's going to be residue of doing that if you're doing it a lot. If you find yourself in situations with people where you're judging them, you're resentful, you're angry, and if you just take a moment, you're going to feel those in you. So the pivot is always the choice. The first step is like, I'm going to choose to see people differently from the way I have been. I'm going to choose an intention and attitude to see them in a way that is, interconnected with me, and to bring in objectivity. Because if they're doing things that you don't agree with, objectivity gives you the clarity, right? You don't have to get into the weeds with them. You don't have to get into drama or trauma. You're like, yep, that person isn't for me. And that's okay.
Yeah, that's totally okay. You can still have respect for that person.
Or not if they're not demanding respect, but at a soul level, yes. You know, it's the understanding that you're connected. But if someone's a thief and you don't want to be with a thief, yep, that's objectivity, but you don't have to get into the drama with them.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a really good point. It brings up that, kind of brings back to that level of tolerance, where you start to, push the edges of that. And it's like, I don't know how much longer I can hang around with this person in this environment, and recognize that if you have certain standards for your environment, and that's, and you're outside of that can add up for you.
Right.
But the antidote for that is exactly what you said. Objectivity.
Objectivity is key.
Right. When you see somebody for who they are and what they are, and just really respect and honor that, then you're actually respecting and honoring yourself.
Absolutely. It's the absence of the expectation, disappointment, blame energy trio we've talked about a lot, because whenever we expect someone to be different, then there's a level of disappointment, which is really on us because we had an expectation. And then there's blame. And when you're putting out blame, you get something back that is really funky.
Yeah.
So I have an idea of a tool before we sign off, or a tip to help people. Do you have anything that you'd like to share with people?
You go first.
Well, I thought this would be kind of a cool exercise, and get ready, because it might be viewed from some of your family or friends like, what's going on? But I thought, if it's like Nick, you said earlier, sometimes we're going too fast.
Just too fast.
Just too fast in life. So what would happen, everyone, if you slowed it down, and every time you saw someone, you took your left fingertips and just touched your heart? And it doesn't have to be this big, like, pounding of the chest. People might not even see it. Oh, hi, how are you? And when you just touch your heart like that, there will be this acknowledgement of the heart energy, which everyone has. It will allow you to be a bit softer, and it will immediately, like I said before, dust off that lens of how you're seeing someone.
Yeah, that's really, that's profound.
It's a bit of a challenge. I think it's worth it. I would do it for 3 days. Tap your heart, touch your heart as you meet people. You might be walking around all day with your left hand on your heart.
Yeah, especially when you say thank you.
Yeah.
When you build that habit of that's how I built the habit, was in thank you. It was like when I touch my heart, 'cause it's like, oh, that really does come from the heart.
I get that. But the words thank you do show the gratitude. But I think it's when people are just seeing and greeting and they're missing that moment of connection. Or if you all find yourself judging, sending out rays of resentment, touch your heart.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. No, I was really I totally agree with you. It needs to be at the front of the conversation. For me, it was to really build the habit. That was how I built the habit. I started there. Yeah. But I think that's a great exercise. Go try that for 3 days or a week or a month or however.
Yeah, I think everyone might be very surprised at not just what you're giving out, not just how you see people, your energy level at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, here's the real kicker, is if we're throwing out negative energy, if we're holding attitudes towards people of anger, frustration, of judgment, of regret, resentment, and like Nick, you talked about, the field shrinks and our energy pool just goes way down.
Yeah. If it weren't a podcast, we'd just show you.
Yeah, we would show you. So, but by the same token, the reverse is true. When you're more inclined to see people for the goodness of them, the positivity, when you have the objectivity. So, like I said before, if someone doesn't mesh with you, rather than a whole bunch of negative Nelly words or thoughts, you're just like, not my gig. Your energy will lift up because what you're sending out is a more vibrant energy. That's what you get back.
Yeah, that's really good. For me, it really comes down to respect. Like that's my go-to. I think that is something that really, really has taken a hit in human relationships, is just that level of respect for who and what that person is.
Right.
And bringing that back sets the foundation for anything to grow from there. I don't think you can have any real sense of love or connection without respect.
That's true.
To me, that's a really foundational thing. It's not about, sometimes I think you have to kind of look, you might have to look for something to respect. And it comes back to that. It's so easy to see something, see something in somebody or something in their behavior that is just reprehensible or totally outside the bounds for what you would expect. That doesn't mean that you have to lose all respect for that person.
Right.
You can look and find something to respect about them. Like when I see some people, it's easy. You see somebody on the, I've seen this. I haven't really experienced this myself, but I knew a person who did really judge homeless people. Look at them, why don't they have a job? They could do better. That's a young person. They're able-bodied, yada, yada, yada. And I can understand that viewpoint. I think I get it, and there's another side to that. When I look at that, I'm like, wow, that's tough. And the respect that I find for that is like, man, I can't imagine how humbling that has to be to be going through that experience and to have to really humble yourself to get what you need to live.
Right.
And my respect for just continuing to show up,
to be alive.
Yeah. And choosing to continue to wake up every day and do something.
Yeah.
Which is pretty extraordinary, especially when the chips are down like that, so to speak. That's a pretty intense experience. For me, and when I saw this, it was kind of an interesting, I won't say who it was. I think they might be a listener. You might, if you're out there, you know who you are. But when we talked about that and just watching, to have that part of the conversation about, man, like really, really take a moment and put yourself in those shoes. What would you be feeling like?
Right.
How would you be showing up? What would be going through your mind? And to really dive through a few layers of that and to watch that person shift and how they related, to those folks from there. It was like, it was really pretty profound.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's really great. And at the end of the day, compassion goes a long way, and it's whatever anybody did or didn't do to get to a place like that, it's not our gig. But if we can see in a slightly different way, it actually helps them. If we're going to judge them, put a bunch of negative stuff, it's certainly not going to help them. It's going to hurt us.
Yeah. So in simplest terms for that level of respect, for me anyway, is like finding something about that person that is, really speaks to me, a really positive quality, whatever that might be. And it's not, like I said, you kind of got to look for it sometimes in some cases, but man, I can tell you that once you see that and acknowledge it and call it out, you open the door for that person to let that shine, and you open yourself to receive that.
Totally. And one last thing before we, before we go, same, like if for some of you who see highly successful people, maybe in your industry, maybe you're building businesses or you're a coach, you're a speaker, and you see people on Facebook and they're talking about how great they are, and there tends to be this competition or judgment. Pause, man, look at something of value and just be like, this is so cool. Someone is doing great, because if another human being is doing great, it means it's possible.
Exactly.
And there are so many human beings that are doing great. So just be like, that is so cool. This is so great. Choose something and emulate it.
Yeah. That's where people get into lack with the competition
definitely.
stuff. And it's like, oh, well, they're taking all the people or all the,
no.
It's like, no, I mean, there's plenty enough people for everybody. There's plenty enough people that need help. And your job, if you happen to be in that role, I think it's every human's job to just find a way to help.
Yeah.
Go help some people, man. Like however you do that, like find a way to help, find a way to brighten somebody's day. And when you're looking for that, you're going to find that.
Right.
And you're going to have much more energy, way more magic, and way more miracles in your life. And you're just going to have so much more ease in your relationships.
Absolutely.
It's not about being Pollyanna and just saying, oh, that liar is going to, I can totally trust, like, dude, they're a liar.
You can't trust a liar.
It's no big deal, but you don't have to like make it a big thing or have a bunch of drama about it. You can just respect for what they are or understand what they are and be like, okay, great. Like, let's acknowledge that and move on.
Move on. Cut cords, baby cakes.
Yeah. Because that's a big piece, and then, and really staying objective with when you're in alchemical conflict. Is that
alchemical conflict?
Alchemical conflict, you know? So that's a really important piece. If you want to know what you are or where you land on that, the Ultimate Life Tool is pretty amazing. It's a simple test. It takes like 10 minutes.
15.
Maybe 15.
15
there's
to 20.
There's some, I don't think it would take 20 minutes. Maybe. Anyway, it takes just a short amount of time.
Just one of Nick's drivers is perseverance, which can go into being stubborn, just so you know.
So we're leaving this part in.
Okay, good.
So anyway, it takes about 10 to 20 minutes, perhaps max 20 minutes. And there's some really unique questions on there. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have been like, I don't know how you got that from those questions, but that's really spot on. It gives a really comprehensive look at where you land on all those things. And alchemy is one of those. And it'll tell you, kind of where you lie. And it'll also give you an idea of like, like here's some things. And challenges in relationships, especially intimate relationships in particular, are often going to come down to some challenge around alchemy. Right. So, once you have that piece sorted out, you can understand a little bit better. Kisma and I are kind of within range
sometimes,
but it's not it's not a lockstep match.
It is not a lock. I need time.
Yeah. So it's, there's a piece there, but now you can navigate it in a really beautiful way. And everybody has a beautiful life,
Right.
It's easy once you really understand that.
So cool. Yeah. You'll see the link in the show notes. There's an investment to do it. It's not very large, but it's so worth it. And you'll see more when you click. But in the meantime, everyone, left hand on your heart when you say hello.
I love that.
Okay. Thanks for joining. And we'll see you on the next, I just got to see the next episode because we're going to talk about more attitude adjustment. And this one's going to be good. So make sure you tune in next week.
Peace.
Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.